Every gardener dreams of a food system that demands less work yet produces more food. As unpredictable weather, rising seed costs, and soil fatigue challenge traditional gardening methods, more growers are shifting toward high-yield evergreen and perennial crops, plants that return year after year with minimal maintenance. Instead of tilling, sowing and coaxing annuals back to life each spring, these long-lived producers keep feeding you while you focus your time and energy elsewhere. For 2025, the emphasis is shifting even more strongly toward efficiency, sustainability and maximum output. The question many gardeners are asking is simple. If I could only plant a handful of food crops that produce for years with little effort, what should they be? After years of trials, failures and surprising successes, these are my top 5 high-yield evergreen plants that provide massive harvests, survive tough seasons and cut your yearly workload in half. If you're tired of buying onion sets every year, or worse, fussing with seed trays, Egyptian walking onions are honestly the most efficient member of the onion family you can grow. These hardy onions do exactly what their name suggests. They walk across your garden, planting themselves via top sets that fall and re-root. Quite remarkable, really. Once planted, you'll never need to buy or replant onions again. Why are they such game changers? Well, you can harvest greens like scallions almost year-round. You can dig mature bulbs at the base each summer. One planting, believe it or not, can last for decades. They're virtually pest-proof and extremely drought-tolerant. And surprisingly, they produce more the harsher they're treated. For 2025's unpredictable growing patterns, walking onions are your insurance policy, reliable, productive, and completely self-maintaining. Imagine harvesting lush, nutrient-packed leafy greens every week without ever reseeding. That's what perennial kale varieties, especially purple tree collards, dinosaur tree kale and walking stick kale, deliver. These vigorous plants can grow 6 to 10 feet tall, pumping out leaves even through mild frosts. With a bit of protection, many varieties of perennial kale will produce all year round. What makes perennial kale, well, a real power crop for 2025, is that there's no need for replanting. You just cut and come again for years. It produces more leaves compared to annual kale, and honestly, it handles heat, cold, and even poor soil much better than the common varieties. Plus, you can propagate it endlessly from cuttings, which is rather brilliant if you ask me. You know, as food prices continue to rise, a single tree collard can, quite remarkably, feed a family for years with almost no input at all. Rhubarb earns its place on this list not just because it's perennial, but because, well, it's one of the earliest food crops to burst from the soil in spring. When other vegetables are barely waking up, rhubarb is already producing huge, leafy stalks, ready for pies, jams, sauces, and of course, some good old fresh eating. Why, you know, rhubarb really does belong in every efficiency garden. With proper care, it can live for 10 to 20 years, which is quite impressive. It produces generous harvests in early spring, just when you need them most. And well, it suffers from virtually no pests or diseases. Rhubarb thrives in cool climates and partial shade, making it a reliable choice. Plus, it expands slowly, so you get more plants every few years without much fuss. In a world where, shoulder-season food scarcity worries many gardeners, rhubarb stands out as a predictable producer you can count on, year after year. Most people, I suppose, treat runner beans as annuals. But in mild climates, or with a bit of mulching, scarlet runner beans are actually true perennials. Even in places where they freeze back, their tubers often manage to overwinter underground and then re-sprout in the spring. So, that means no more replanting every year. They also, honestly, produce more biomass and beans than most bush or pole varieties. Why are they a high-yield winner? Well, you get beans for fresh eating or drying, and the pods, leaves and flowers are all edible too. Their fast growth and high productivity really stand out. Plus, they attract pollinators that can boost your entire garden. And let's not forget, those gorgeous red flowers add real ornamental value. A single plant can, surprisingly, produce pounds of beans across multiple warm seasons. When it comes to yield per square foot, they're honestly quite hard to beat. Traditional spinach really does struggle in the heat and, it bolts at the first sign of stress. But here's the thing, perennial spinach alternatives like Malabar spinach, Bacella alba, and Chaya Cynidosculus aconitiefolius can actually produce lush greens in conditions that would kill off most annual vegetables. In tropical and semi-tropical regions, Chaya is really the king. A shrub that just pumps out leaves faster than you can harvest them, honestly. And in those hotter climates, Malabar spinach absolutely thrives, especially when all the other greens are wilting away. So, what makes these plants essential for 2025? They're heat-loving, drought-resistant and, highly productive. You get a constant supply of tender, nutrient-rich greens. No need for replanting, just a bit of pruning. And believe it or not, they can produce 10 times the yield of traditional spinach in tough climates. When summer heatwaves become the norm, these hardy perennial greens keep feeding your family. The trend toward high-yield evergreen crops isn't just a fad. It's a shift toward a smarter, easier, more resilient gardening system. With climate unpredictability growing each year, the best food producers are those that, require minimal yearly input, return dependable harvests, survive harsh seasons, resist pests and diseases, and, reduce labour, watering and replanting costs. Plant these 5 crops in 2025, and you'll create a garden that practically runs itself while producing more food than many traditional annual plots.